we evolved on ruminant animal meat, mammoth, saurochs, stuff like that. That's what we ate, and
Mm.
that's what we're mostly adapted to. And so if somebody's really sick, definitely get onto that. But then be warned that in future, even some of the not so ideal carnivore foods can set you back because the defenses have gone down. People go, oh, it makes you weak. No, it doesn't. It's just that we have this diverse microbiome, most of it to protect ourselves against plants and junk foods, seed oils, all these terrible things. And it does its best to protect us. But then when we stop eating those, the microbiome can simplify. And people say, oh, that's unhealthy. No, we just don't need it anymore. Like, you don't need a raincoat on a sunny day. But then, if it pours with rain, you're going to get more wet than you would do on a raining day because you took your raincoat with you. And
Well, Phil Escott, a big warm welcome to the Your Body's Way podcast. I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm so happy that you said yes to come and speak on the podcast. It really is. It's always an honor to speak to someone who is so well versed and who has been through so much when it comes to their health, and you're definitely no exception. So, a big warm welcome. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Tamara, and thank you so much for getting me on. As we were saying beforehand, Tamara has a great way of inviting people onto podcasts. It's lovely with a video and everything. So honored. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, good. Well, I'm so glad. And I was just saying also, just when we were talking just now, that your passions and your specialties are so varied. So it was very difficult for me to come up with a topic that I wanted to focus in on because there are so many ways this podcast could have gone. But I had to zero in on food today because, it is a podcast that's mainly about food. And I do also like to talk about how food isn't like it was back in, generations ago. Obviously, it's changed a lot. So we can definitely touch on that in this podcast. But I specifically want to kind of base this podcast around a book, a very successful book that you wrote 11 years ago now called Arthritis, the Best Thing That Ever Happened to Me. And it's a great book. And I feel like it's allowed people to like not only read your story and feel like they're not alone in their journey, but also it helps them to learn that they can own their diagnosis and they don't have to just hand themselves over to their doctors like you did in the beginning of your journey. So I just thought we could first of all, introduce you first of all to anybody who hasn't come across you yet and who's intrigued. Introduce you, and then just rather than talking about arthritis itself, like talking about food and what the kind of foods to avoid, foods that helped you turn around your arthritis, and just kind of some top tips basically on how someone can reduce their inflammation. So can I just ask you really, really quickly, are you 100% in remission of your arthritis today?
Yeah. I've got it out of 30 joints or so where it was just all over and agony. And two joints have got a bit of damage, my right wrist and my left knee. And, I should be working on them harder than I do, but the pain has all gone. And so there's no inflammation. But
That is
yeah, I get
crazy.
lazy sometimes. I don't think I'll be sitting in lotus for 3 hours a day like I used to in my yogi days anytime soon. But yeah, it's fine for, running around doing whatever I do, playing the drums and other things that I do. So yeah, so that's my backdrop is drums stacked up and set up and whatever. And so yeah, I'm back on that and I couldn't play for a couple of years. I was just basically stuck on the sofa and I already thought that I was an expert really on diet and stuff. I'd written books on Ayurvedic medicine and with an angle of plant-based eating, conned into that by the whole spiritual side of things, And I had to throw out everything I thought I knew in 2010 when I was absolutely crippled. I mean, there was little warning signs, there was little whispers for a couple of decades before, but we don't we don't get taught to listen to those things. And so we wait, you go to your doctor and they go, well, your leg hasn't fallen off yet, so there's nothing we can do for you. And so they don't take notice of these subtle things. Oh, it's just wear and tear. Oh, it's this or that. Oh, you're training too hard in the gym. I used to run a gym, years ago. And so you don't get those answers. And then when it flares up very badly and everything goes wrong, you get sent straight to the rheumatologist and having those terrible poisons put in you that blow up your liver and detach your retinas and whatever. And not a word is mentioned about diet.
Mhm.
So, first of all, I went down I was veggie. So I thought, right, I'll go down the even more veggie route and go vegan. That was a disaster. Ended up emaciated and in just as much pain, but with really bad brain fog and kidney stones from all the spinach smoothies and stuff. Anyway, I got past that stage, and it took me about 3 years really to see it off and write that book. But since then, the people who I consult with, I see them reversing it way quicker than I did with what I know now. And it's not just me. I mean, there are many people out there now and some great docs and, some amazing people like Dr. Sophia Clements, Anthony Chafee, Natasha Campbell McBride, all these wonderful people who it's been lovely in this doing what I do to get to know them and get loads of their ideas as well. And it really it ties in with everything I've experienced and also with our ancestral heritage. I always say to people, if you want to understand about diet, don't look at any diet gurus. You'll go mad. There's all this conflicting info.
Yeah.
Study anthropology, plant toxins, and deuterium, and then you'll probably understand diet.
And that's what I love about your approach. You don't give a prescription. You're not like, okay, this is what you do, this is what you eat, this is how much you eat. Like there's no, if someone's looking for a prescribed kind of diet to follow, that's not what you're about. You're about empowering people and pointing people in the right direction to do their own research and to say, okay, look, you're avoiding meat. People have their reasons to avoid meat, but you're like, but just look back at anthropology and look back at how humans developed and just see how you feel after that. For someone and that's what I found crazy about you and your story. You've always been super healthy. So, you've been saying that you were very much into yoga and into meditation and you owned a gym and you were super fit, but yet you still had this problem. And I just think so many people can relate to that. They feel like they're doing everything right, but actually it's not right for them at all. So do you feel like that made it worse for you in a way?
Well, only that I thought I was a real expert.
Mm.
I have to admit that from about 2000 until 2010, I was not fit, healthy, or anything. I'd started eating a load of crap. I mean, most of my diet was pretty much wheat and dairy at the time. It was either sort of pizzas or pasta meals with loads of cheese on and stuff like that. And then I'd occasionally cook what I thought was a very healthy Ayurvedic kind of Indian vegetarian meal. And then I'd spend the rest of the day just taking Rennies for heartburn and farting constantly. And, I thought, well, this can't really be right. But I thought that was the healthy diet.
Mm.
And
Can you go
there
in?
was,
Yeah,
go on.
sorry, I was just going to say, because you've talked about veganism and Ayurvedic diets and so on. Can you just kind of talk us through what you were eating at that time?
Well, mostly, in the 80s and 90s, when I was involved in the sort of spiritual side of things with the transcendental meditation movement, we were sort of eating a Southern Indian diet, if you like, in the north of England, which is inappropriate, really, for circadian mismatch. Even worse up here. I mean, I did a video on my YouTube channel called Diet Brainwashing, Why Spiritual People Still Die of Cancer, really aimed at my friends who were dropping like flies. When I'm 62 now, but most of them are like 5, 10 years older than me in the movement up here, which is the sort of center of it in England. And they were just, they're falling like crazy from cancer, autoimmunity, all that kind of thing. And they're not seeing it. All they do is go and get more Ayurvedic pills. And some of them are just full of crap. They come from India. They're full of heavy metals. One favorite ingredient is cow poo, isn't it? In those Ayurvedic medicines.
I
I
did
mean,
not know that.
that's probably the best bit in them, to be
Yeah,
honest.
probably the most natural part, maybe.
Yeah, but I think that Ayurveda is wonderful. These ancient sciences. Well, they're not actually that ancient. People think they're that ancient, but say 3,000 years maybe, as we see time unfolding. But does time work as we think it does? But we won't go down that rabbit hole. But you know, for millennia we ate seasonally, locally, wherever we were on the planet, whatever the season was, whatever. And as Mary Ruddick said, who is wonderful, who you must get on, she's absolutely a joy. And she was on my podcast. Have a listen to it. It's on the Red Pill Buddhas
I've
podcast.
seen it. Yeah, I actually saw it this morning. Yeah.
Did you? The podcast or the Mary Ruddick one?
So I haven't listened to it yet, but I saw Mary
Oh, yeah,
Ruddick on your
she's amazing.
podcast, and I was like, okay, yeah.
Yeah, so she was vegan and was sort of bedridden, very ill, healed herself on a sort of meat-based keto diet. And now she lives with all the tribes all around the world, the real inaccessible ones that nobody else bothers to go to and never ends up on food surveys or blue zone information and all that nonsense. And these people live incredibly long lives, very, very healthy. And depending on where they are, where, north or south, they eat between 90 and 100% meat. They all do. There's nowhere on earth you can survive on just plants. And this was the delusion I got into, caught into by, oh, you'll never get enlightened if you eat meat and all that kind of thing that gets put out by all these spiritual groups. And so, yeah, I was just following what I thought was an Ayurvedic diet. And it isn't, because in the old texts of Ayurveda, like the Charak Samhita, the Bhava Prakash, they say meat is like nectar. It's the life-giving force. There is no better nourishment for the body. And they say that in there, but it's been perverted, and not to put too much of a tinfoil hat on, but you can see in our Red Pill Revolution books and Red Pill Food Revolution books how we've been controlled with misinformation about everything, including diet, over the millennia, probably centuries at least. And it's caught us into thinking that we need all these vegetables, we need all these plant foods, even if you're not vegan or vegetarian, which I believe is a disaster, a total disaster.
Explain why.
Well, because it's full of plant toxins. There's not enough bioavailable nutrients.
Yeah.
Whatever we've been told, there's nothing in meat that's lacking. It has everything we need and no toxins. Basic botany tells us that 99% of the plants out there will put us in a hospital or kill us if we eat them. And the other 1% are just a slower poison. They all have defense chemicals. And, as our friend Anthony Chaffee says, there's a Brussels sprout has 136 known carcinogens. And that's an organic Brussels sprout, not one that's been sprayed with glyphosate. And that adds another one toxin, but it's a powerful one. But our guts have been wrecked by this excessive use of plants. We don't need them. No tribes eat stalks and leaves. None of them. And we're told those are the superfoods. We're told to eat 5 a day, which it's nonsense. It was just.
Where does it come from? They don't even. I spoke to. Sorry to cut in, but I spoke to Zoe Harcum. You know Zoe Harcum?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
She's brilliant, and isn't she brilliant?
Yeah.
She makes no kind of secret that she wanted to find out who came up with 5 a day. Like, she literally went to everyone she could find in the food industry, and she's like, who came up with 5 a day? And no one could give her a straight answer. Like, no one knew. And it's just like, it just makes you wonder, where do these guidelines come from?
Well, I hear it was from some sort of vegetable marketing board meeting or something in the late 90s, I think it was. And someone just pulled it out of their ass, to be honest. It was nonsense. Just guessed 5 a day. That sounds great. And eat 10 a day. Now they're trying to push it up. As a friend of mine, a dentist, she said to me, oh, well, there we go. I've got a load more customers now. Because the people she sees with the worst teeth are vegans. Because, it's very often a very high fructose, high deuterium diet, rots the teeth. I'm very lucky I got away with it. I mean, my teeth don't look that great, but I got no fillings, at 62, and they're still hanging in there.
Well, I haven't got any either.
Nice. Yeah, at least yours look good too. You haven't done the abuse that I have. But you know, if you look at the Inuit skulls and whatever, they dig them up. They had no even cavities,
Mm.
nothing whatsoever. So their dental health was absolutely perfect. And you know, the work of Weston Price shows that. You know, early last century when he went around the world and looked at tribes, and the more plants they ate, the worse their health was. And
Mhm.
we've forgotten this. There's so much brainwashing. It's so deep. We've got to be kind to animals. We've got to do this. We've got to do that. Sorry if there's a bit of a noise now. Now, one of my son's friends is coming around. He's banging on the front door, and there might be chaos for a couple of minutes.
Oh
But
no,
hey,
that's all right. Don't worry about it. I can't even hear anything, so I
oh,
can't hear
you
the
wait.
door.
Doors start
Oh, okay.
opening. Yeah.
What would you say to somebody who, I mean, for example, my diet is, you know, I do enjoy eating vegetables. I've spoken to enough experts now to know that, you know, fermentation and, you know, eating locally as much as possible and organic as much as possible is the best option. But what would you say to somebody who thinks, oh, but, you know, if I don't eat plants, then won't I be constipated? Like, what about the fiber angle? So, what do you say about the fiber angle? Because I actually don't know a lot about it. I haven't had time to go into it. So, can you just catch me up a bit?
It's a real common one. I mean, when I was vegetarian, I'd be sitting on the toilet like 6 times a day.
Mm.
And you're told that's healthy. You don't realize it's basically IBS heading for Crohn's. And you know, I was on Sean Baker's podcast a while ago, and we were joking about this, and I was saying that now, you know, my turds could be on the cover of the Bristol Stool Chart Glamour calendar. You know, one a day, perfect, crowd pleaser. Shall I wake the missus up and show her? I, the human body
Oh
has no
gosh.
requirement whatsoever for fiber, none at all.
Do you eat any plants?
No, none,
None.
none. 9 years,
Not
none.
even a
No.
root vegetable, which in your book you're like, you know, maybe some root vegetables, but
Well, no, not that. But my book was before 2015 when I went
yeah,
fully.
yeah.
I found a huge difference. You know, like Anthony Chaffee says again, 95% of the benefits come when you cut the last 5% of the plant. Really happens. And I'd actually throw dairy into that category as well. It's very dangerous, especially raw dairy, which is going to get me a big slap. But there we
Oh,
go. We'll come on to
interesting.
that.
We'll come
Come
on,
on to that
we'll
later.
put a pin in that one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But but the plant thing, the fiber thing, there's a study out there, and I'm not a great one for quoting studies because they're usually financed by some farmer or food company. But this one was some independent study, and it was 64 people who had idiopathic constipation, and they took all the fiber out of their diet, probably expecting that they were going to explode, you know? All of them got better, not just a few. And it was the World Journal of Gastroenterology or something. And they, at the end, they said, we're going to have to seriously reconsider the role of fiber in the diet. Now, if you're eating real crap and junk food, fiber can help to get it through quicker. But that's because the body identifies it as indigestible cellulose.
Hmm.
It's useless. There's no nutrition in it, and out it goes. And any nutrients that are on paper in vegetables are not very bioavailable because they're wrapped up in this indigestible fiber. The fiber also ruins the gut health. So it wrecks the microbiome, it gives you leaky gut, and through go the toxins from the plants. And as they build up in various areas of the body, particularly appalling things like oxalates,
Mm.
get Sally Norton on to chat, you know,
I
who wrote Top.
have. I have.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had
That
her
was
on
a
my
very
list.
popular episode. Very
Oh,
popular. Yeah.
great. And these, I mean, I've been there. I've had the kidney stones. And even in 2022, I had a kidney stone. And I've been carnivore for 8 years by then or whatever. And I said to her on the podcast, how did this happen? And she said, look, you can dump oxalates in waves for decades, particularly the amount I'd poisoned myself by trying to get myself better with incredibly healthy spinach smoothies.
Mm.
And so I had it, you know, it was oxalate soup every day. It was horrific. And so it's no wonder those oxalates are still coming out. The body tries to control it in a certain fashion, but you know, every now and again, some of it calcifies. And if you're prone to kidney stones, so quit the oxalates, everybody. So yeah, fiber. I just every carnivore laughs at that. I have a carnivore Facebook group of 20,000 or so, and there's bigger ones. And every time you see them when they go carnivore, they say, "Wow, I've never had such a good digestion and elimination." And
Wow.
people say, oh, carnivore meat rots in your stomach and it stays there and it's not digested properly. Well, I just say to somebody, eat a steak and some sweet corn, and you tell me what you can identify in the toilet the next morning.
Right. Because we all
It's
see
not.
that as normal, don't we? We're like, we make jokes about it, but we just, we don't actually realize that that's because the corn wasn't actually digested. Like it,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
And the meat is all perfectly digested. And
Mm.
what comes out is generally less. But there's no bloating, there's no discomfort, there's nothing like that. It all comes out, and it's basically, most of it is just the bacteria left, and that's it. There's no problems, there's no digestive issues. Even if some people at the beginning of a carnivore diet will go a bit, they'll get a bit slower, in their sort of going to the toilet and whatever. They'll not go for a few days or something like that. But there's never any pain.
Mm.
It's not like there's any discomfort. You say, well, are you in any discomfort? No. But then there are ways to do that. It usually means people are just not eating enough fat. If you want to help things through, eat enough fat. You don't need enough fiber, any fiber. There's a book, I believe it's called The Fibre Menace by the unpronounceable and unspellable Konstantin Monastyrsky. But The Fibre Menace, it's great. And it takes you through all the ways that we've been fooled about fiber. If anybody is in any doubt of that and is reading this, is listening to this and saying this guy's absolutely insane, well, hey, just think about it. When have you ever heard of the Inuit or the Maasai having any sort of blowing up because of constipation or having any bowel cancer whatsoever?
Mm.
And they say
Wow.
red meat increases bowel cancer. This is absolutely nonsense. It's really biased, cherry-picked
Mm.
studies. They don't show anything. It's all relative rather than absolute risk of people who eat a load of other crap along with the meat. We've seen bowel cancer reversed on a carnivore diet. We've seen pretty much everything reversed on a carnivore diet. When you look at the results that Sophia Clements, Dr. Sophia Clements at Paleomedicina in Hungary, incredible. I mean, like my friend Andrew Scarborough, who came on my podcast too, and he's 11 years out from a glioblastoma diagnosis.
Mm.
From going really low carb, no plants, and he's reversed a glioblastoma, and now he's healthier than he ever was, and he's doing his own cancer research and making real waves in the cancer community. But that's not the only instance, even of glioblastomas.
Mm.
But even on my channel, on my YouTube channel, you can see my mother's breast cancer reversing on it with pics and whatever at 93 years of age. And it was
By
also,
switching to carnivore.
yeah, it was
Mm.
ulcerating through the skin, and it just regrouped. And an iodine protocol as well. This is very useful when there's something hormonal in women that's like a hormonally driven breast tumor or whatever. There are other tweaks you can do. But generally, you get 90% there from just a decent high-fat carnivore diet. And when you have, so you say I don't prescribe anything. Well, normally I don't. I say, just if anyone's reasonably healthy or they just want to lose weight or fix some metabolic issues or something, eat locally and seasonally.
Mm.
And there won't be many plants. Don't eat the plants that are in the supermarket because they didn't even exist 200 years ago. We ate some nuts and berries. We didn't have broccoli. We didn't have spinach. It didn't exist. It's all been, cloned or whatever you call it, like crossbred from the mustard plant, isn't it? From a brassica vegetable. But it doesn't really exist. But when you are autoimmune or you have cancer, really a high fat diet from the meat of animals that have eaten what they're supposed to eat. So
Mm.
that cuts out pork, dairy, chicken, eggs, even at that time. Egg yolks are great nutrition. You can reintroduce them. Some people do. But you can be fine on just beef, lamb, salt, and water. And that's basically what I eat. That's all I eat. People go, oh, isn't that boring? No, what's boring is crippling psoriatic arthritis.
Yeah, which you had a
You know?
massive, like you struggled for years with that. Like, and
Yeah.
reading your account of how that went for you, like it's actually painful to read. It's like the stuff, like the way that you couldn't even like you had to drop all of your hobbies and you couldn't even, get around easily, and you're just in so much pain, you couldn't sleep. And I just can't imagine that. But can you just clear up then? So you said you just what do you eat now, and how would you define the carnivore diet?
Well, you know, the people say carnivore diet. It takes many forms. There's some people just
Yeah, because there are different types, right? Because Paul
they're just
Saladino, for example, he's like, I do meat, and raw dairy, but now I have fruit as well. So people are now thinking, okay, so fruit is okay. Like, what
no.
is the carnivore diet?
If anybody's into fruit saladino, I'm sorry, he's the only person that I would have a problem with on in the carnivore space. I think he's done a lot of harm with that.
Mm,
And if he gets on fine with it, then great. He's out in the sun depleting a lot of the deuterium from the fruit. But nobody ever ate 400 grams of carbs from fruit every day, day in, day out. It never happens ancestrally. You can't find that much fruit in the wild.
mm,
The monkeys get it first, the bats piss on it, you get stomach problems. It's not even the fruit that you'd recognize. So it's not ancestrally appropriate. It just, if anybody is into uh, fruit salad, have a look at some of Bart Kay's debunks of him. I mean, Bart goes right into the science. Paul seems to have a lot of the science, but I don't think he does. There are a few things he's ignoring, like the Randall cycle. I think a lot of these carnivores who've taken up a load of fruit, quite possibly, well, they're usually the ones who ate too many organ meats. And when you eat too many organ meats, they are so high in nutrition, you can get hypervitaminosis.
yeah.
And then they probably find when they eat fruit and that blocks the uptake, they feel better. They'd probably be better to just drop out the organ meats for a while or take them down to a reasonable level. You don't need them. They're very good vitamin pill for healing, but you don't really need them. And how big is an animal? How big is the liver, for example? You don't need to eat all that every day. We never did. So it's not what our species is designed to do. And a lot of those guys who have gone onto the fruit thing, well, there's not many of them. There's like a few. Um, they've usually got freeze-dried organ supplement businesses,
Mm,
and so they've been eating a load of organs, and they've been eating those freeze-dried supplements. And I just don't think it's worked out for them. You see the people who balance it up pretty well, and they're fine. But again, if you're autoimmune, you say that it was horrible to read about that in my book, but in the winter of 2022-23, I was worse. I was worse than
how
that
so? How
because
so?
I was touring around with a band that I play with. I was eating a load of chicken, pork, dairy, eggs. Had a load of other influences. There was a load of other influences. It's not always just diet, but it was a
Yeah.
really heavy year for me too. But I was misbehaving. I thought I'm fine now, and I got into that old rock and roll lifestyle and probably drinking too much brandy, smoking a few spliffs. I didn't even eat any plants. But then it hit me around the autumn equinox where we all often get these detox times.
Mm,
And it started flaring up a few joints. And I thought, never mind, 3-day dry fast. That'll knock it on the head, back to beef, lamb, salt, and water. That always works if I make a bit of a mistake. Nope, it didn't work. And it escalated and escalated. In that book, I had, I think, a CRP, the inflammatory blood marker of about 85, when it should be less than 1.
mm.
In the winter of 2022, I had 192
God, what are you
because
getting up to?
the defenses were down. It wasn't even that
Yeah.
much. This is why straight away I went onto Anthony's podcast, Anthony Chaffee's, really emaciated, saying, I got to come and talk about this and warn people who are autoimmune, because here I am, I'm supposed to be some arthritis guru, and I was on crutches. I couldn't move. I got rid of it though in 3 months when it took me 3 years before, because I knew what to do this time and I knew what I'd done. But I still lost 45 pounds and my body started eating itself, and it was horrific, really, really painful, a horrific pain, even at rest, just sitting there, and the
Wow.
temptation to take painkillers was huge. But I know that just wrecks the gut and
Mm,
prolongs these things. So I didn't take them, nothing at all. But yeah, it was really heavy. But that was also heralded at the end of the summer by that other kidney stone.
mm.
And so I thought, hang on a minute, it's also probably an oxalate dumping component as well. And you never know how much you've been poisoned by these things. And sometimes it hits you in waves, even decades down the line.
Mhm.
So, I think the quickest way really is grass-fed beef and lamb. The problem with chicken and pork is they've been fed rubbish, right? They get fed all the grains and soy and all that. So it comes through in the meat. The fat is high in deuterium. It's low in omega 3s, not a good balance. Um, we evolved on ruminant animal meat, you know, mammoth, saurochs, stuff like that. That's what we ate, and that's what we're mostly adapted to. And so if somebody's really sick, definitely get onto that. But then be warned that in future, even some of the not so ideal carnivore foods can set you back because the defenses have gone down. People go, oh, it makes you weak. No, it doesn't. It's just that we have this diverse microbiome, most of it to protect ourselves against plants and junk food, seed oils, all these terrible things. And it does its best to protect us. But then when we stop eating those, the microbiome can simplify. And people say, oh, that's unhealthy. No, we just don't need it anymore. Like you don't need a raincoat on a sunny day. But then if it pours with rain, you're going to get more wet than you would do on a raining day because you took your raincoat with you. And that's what happens in the microbiome. But we don't know what happens. Anybody who says they're an expert in the microbiome, they have no idea. They don't know.
Yeah.
And, you know, I definitely was eating too much dairy as well, which, you know, Zofia at Paleo Medicina put right up there with grains and seed oils as a disaster. And yeah, the whole business of dairy, people are really far better off without it. I would, that's one area I'll still agree with the vegans that adult animals don't need dairy.
So, I mean, let's go down that road then, because so many experts would say that raw dairy is the most nutritious food out there. I mean, I spoke to Sally Fallon Morell of the Weston A. Price Foundation, and she said she's, you know, the queen of butter, people call her, and she basically says that cheese is basically one of the most nutritious foods on the planet, and that's that. And you know, everyone's raving about raw milk, and you know, people are going into supermarkets posting pictures with their raw kefir, and but then here you are saying that raw dairy is not a good thing. And you know, is that for everybody or is it just for some people, or what's your thoughts?
I don't know. Again, I'll just give people a different perspective on this. If dairy was such a great thing for us and so nutritious, then adult animals would drink it all the time. They don't. They will drink it if they're given it. You know, a cat will drink a saucer of milk and whatever. Our cat doesn't get a saucer of milk. You know, he just gets raw meat and he's not jabbed and he's still got his bollocks. He looks completely different to other cats in the neighborhood. You know, they all live on kibble and they look like, you know, they got middle-aged spread, all of them. And he's a totally different animal. And if you have an ancestrally appropriate diet, you just stay like that naturally. You know, I used to be 90 pounds heavier than I am now, and I'm 62, and I'm the only person I know, really, apart from other carnivores, who has a flat stomach and pretty good abs if I don't eat dairy. The fat melts away if you don't eat dairy. You know, women on a carnivore diet or a keto diet, when they're not losing weight or they hit a plateau, if you drop the dairy, even a little bit of butter or something, it can make a huge difference. Suddenly the fat loss kicks in again. Every time. It's just really predictable.
This is really like, this is out there. Like, you're the first person to say butter, like even a little bit could, you know, send things awry.
No, but it depends. It depends in comparison to what. Like Anthony Chaffee always says, why is raw milk so great? Because they go onto it and other whole foods or whatever in comparison to a junky, sad diet that they were on before. Right. So that's going to seem
it's definitely
great.
better than that. Yeah.
Well, it's going to seem great. And so they will have tremendous benefits. But if you see what happens when people go carnivore, I mean, I've worked with people with their diets and tried every diet under the sun for 40 odd years. And I've never, ever seen anything that comes even close to a fully carnivore diet, a proper carnivore diet, high fat, for unwinding everything. It's amazing how it works because it's everything you need, none of the toxins. So what's happening with milk? Well, dairy by design is hyperpalatable. It mixes carbs and fats, which doesn't happen in nature except in dairy. And a little bit in nuts, and they come out in the autumn, put a bit of fat on for the winter with the berries and whatever, and that helps us through the winter. But we didn't have them during the winter. We didn't have them in the spring and summer. We ate meat, fish, whatever. So with the dairy, when you have pasteurized dairy, the pasteurization process gets rid of the lactase that helps you digest the lactose. So everybody's like lactose intolerant. They say, oh, I drink milk or I have cheese or whatever, and I have such and such a reaction. But when I had raw milk, I don't have that reaction anymore.
Mm.
Oh, it must be so wonderful. Well, that's because the lactase is intact, and so they're digesting it better. So short term, raw milk feels far better. No digestive issues, nothing like that. However, the pasteurization process also destroys a lot of the growth factors. And now growth factors are there in the milk to make a small animal into a large animal. And they are not really designed for adults. Once you get those kind of growth factors in, you get unusual cell replication. So that can lead to anything, autoimmunity, cancer. This is all unusual cell replication. And when that happens, it happens further down the line, and people would never associate it with their raw milk. It was funny, there's a little video of us where Ben and I, who I was working with on the Big Fat Challenge, and Sophia Clements and I were walking around the Peak District around the time of last year's PHC conference. And we were showing around the English countryside, whatever. We were going on this little walk. And she mentioned this, that raw milk is worse than pasteurized. And I thought, this is nuts. Even I did. I thought, but hey, let's talk to her about it. So we just got the phone out, made a little video, and I asked her some nonsensical questions, as I do. I can never stay serious for long, particularly with Sophia, because you've got to bring her out of her shell, and she's really sweet, really funny when you do, but it takes a bit, you know. But anyway, she was talking about this raw dairy, and then I got her on for a full podcast about it afterwards. But she reckons that, you know, like when my missus was diagnosed with Graves' disease in 2019, and we were talking to her about it, and she was saying even a few molecules a month is enough to keep certain things burning. Graves' disease, leukemia, certain cancers, or whatever. It's the information there, you know, in those milk growth factors. And it was funny, even under those videos, because raw milk is such a sacred cow, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like people love it and they hate to
Yeah.
hear anything against it.
Mm-hmm.
And so people underneath were going, oh, Phil, you're so gullible. You're so, you know, this woman's mad and whatever. I say, what are we going to punch her in the face just because she's got a different opinion? You know, it's interesting. And
It's
she might well be
interesting.
right.
Yeah.
Because I see with my own, you know, symptoms and experience that I'm far better off without any dairy.
Mm.
And in the people who I consult with as well, absolutely, they're better off without it. Whether it's an autoimmune thing that it keeps it ticking, or whether it's even some metabolic issue where they're having difficulty losing weight. Let's say losing fat. I don't like saying losing weight because you don't want to lose muscle and bone density, which you do on Weight Watchers and Slimming World and stuff. But
But then,
you know,
also, I mean, there are people out there who do say that dairy should be avoided, even if it's raw. So, I did an episode with Dr. Terry Walls, and obviously she's all about, you know, reversing autoimmunity as well. And I asked her about dairy because dairy isn't part of her protocol. And I said, what do you think about this raw, you know, raw dairy being like the best food? And she was just like, well, you know, she was just like, if you want to go down that road, then that's up to you, but I'm just letting you know that it doesn't work for me, and it doesn't work for the people that I work with, my patients. Are you familiar with the Lion Diet then? Yeah. So I've forgotten her name, but it's
Michaela Peterson.
Michaela Peterson, yeah, Jordan Peterson's daughter. Gorgeous girl, putting out there all about just the fact that she eats steak, like just steak, steak, steak. And it's so enticing because she reversed her autoimmunity as well. And it's just, you know, she puts up images of people who have had full remissions as well from their autoimmunity. And it just makes you wonder, you know, could this be the answer for many people?
It is, without a shadow of a doubt. I mean, everywhere where you see on any carnivore influencers channel, they'll have those stories.
Mm.
There's so many of them. And under every podcast, you know, you'll get the odd lunatic. I get death threats from vegans on my YouTube channel.
Yeah.
There's always some nutter. They go barking mad. But then you read like 99% of them are like amazing stories. And wow, yes, I put this into remission, that into remission. And yeah, Michaela's come up with this thing about, you know, Lion Diet and whatever. But because she was the same as me. She had horrendous arthritis, and you know, even a steak cooked on a grill where they previously cooked a burger bun or something like that, or a little bit of seed oils on there, and she'd get a reaction. And you can be that sensitive early on. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why people don't realize that diet works, because they sort of go a little bit towards it, and that doesn't do anything. You know, there's that old expression, water doesn't boil at 99 degrees.
Mm.
You can get almost there. You know, people come to me very often saying, I'm on the carnivore diet and I've still got awful symptoms. I go, well, that'd be all right. That'll be easy. Because it's going to be pork, chicken, dairy, or eggs, or two or three of them, or one of them, or whatever, or not enough fat. And that's it, basically. That's what happens. And you get them onto a really high fat beef, lamb, salt, and water. I mean,
Beef,
the
lamb,
lion
salt,
diet,
water, four things, just four things
yeah, pretty
on
much.
that
Yeah,
diet, right?
yeah, yeah. But you know, the lion diet, people still fail on that, because I don't think Michaela stresses that. She does, but a lot of people don't really understand it, and so they just eat beef, lamb, salt, and water, and that often doesn't do it, because you
Mm.
get too much protein in. And when the gut's leaky, even those good proteins from beef and lamb can get through and cause issues, cause a reaction. They're not keeping the gut leaky, but what you need is all the sort of connective tissue, the fats, the whatever. This is what heals the gut and gives you the energy. Because if you just eat protein, you end up with rabbit starvation. We're not cats. We can't do that.
So
So
how do
we're,
people do that? How do they get the fats up, and like what would you
well,
recommend?
you know, the PKD diet, which is, you know, what paleomedicina have coined it, which is Paleolithic ketogenic diet. This is again a full carnivore diet. They can reintroduce things after a while. They do that. Never dairy, never grains, never seed oils. But you know, seasonal fruits and stuff. They say, yeah, fine. This is ancestral. This is how we ate. But if you look at that diet, it's well, the simplest way to say it is a third fat to 2/3 lean meat on the plate. That's pretty much what it looks like by sight. So if you had a really fatty lamb chop or something, that'd be great.
Mm.
If you had a fillet steak, no good. Get a load of tallow, put it on it. Don't get tempted to cook in a load of butter and put a load of butter on it. If you come from a regular diet and eat steak and butter, you'll feel amazing. But I did. You know, it didn't really even affect my joints. For the first 4 years carnivore, up to 2019, when Sophia told my missus, Detta, not to have any dairy at all. And I said, oh, I'll give it up with you then. Oh dear, I'm going to miss my butter and cheese. But I gave it up, and suddenly my abs popped out. They weren't that far down, but they were covered. No more exercise, no extra exercise, no change in calories or amount eaten, and my sinus issues all cleared up as well. I thought, hold on a minute, you know, I mean, even looking back at Ayurveda, milk causes mucus and that kind of thing. It's well known.
Yeah.
Not that I drank milk, but cheese and butter, even, you know, even the high fat end of the dairy.
Mm.
That's great, because you'll lose a load of fat on it. And you know, I remember that YouTube channel, what was it called? Butter makes your pants fall off or something.
I don't
It
know.
does. It's great. Yeah, because you know, you can lose a ton of weight on it, but it's not ideal. When you see people who actually really go back to beef, lamb, salt, and water. I mean, even healthy people, I'd say give it a go for 30 days. Do that
I
reset
was
and
going to
just
say,
see how it feels.
is this just for people who are unwell, or could anybody get something out of this?
I think that if people eat locally and ancestrally, seasonally, as we used to eat in the wild, if you like, and they're healthy, they'll still live to 150, you
Mm.
know? But if somebody's already really messed up, they've lost even those seasonal privileges. Take a year or two out, be really strict, really nail it, and then reintroduce those things. But if you reintroduce them too soon, you'll just keep the fires burning, and things go wrong. We don't need any of those other foods. All we need is fatty meat. That's all we need. But we've become addicted to so many things. You know, I see this cycle so many times in clients that I have, or the people that we've had on the Big Fat Challenge, or whatever, my calls now that I do through my Substack. And you see people, they come and they say, oh, I could never give that up. Well, what am I going to do without this? And I can't give that up. I can't give up my cup of neurotoxins and growth factors in the morning with their coffee and whatever. So I can't do that. I can never. What about chocolate? I can never give that up. anyway, so just do 30 days. The first 2 weeks are hell. They always are. And that's when you run into all the issues, the funny diarrhea or getting bunged up, electrolyte issues, all sorts of funny things can happen. Oxalate dumping. We've been damaged a lot beforehand, and the transition phase can be weird. That's not to put anyone off. Some people breeze through it. It's easy. But the cravings, and then after about 30 days, they're going, do you know what? They're tailing off a bit, and I feel so good. I'm motivated to carry on. And then they go 90 days, and 90 days is really a good marker. The body can do a lot of rearranging in 90 days. And after 90 days, you see them go, wow, I don't really have those cravings anymore. It's amazing. And I feel so good, and I've reversed this and I've reversed that. And so it's just a matter of reprogramming. I mean, I don't have those cravings anymore. I don't have them. When I'm confronted with buttery potatoes, I think, yeah, go on, maybe a couple of potatoes at Christmas or something. It doesn't seem to affect me. But, if you do it occasionally, now and again, like we would have done with plant foods at times of starvation, but heal the gut first before you do that. Because if you do that kind of thing too often, and I didn't even do the potato thing, but just, 2022 being away from home a lot, not being able to find good fats, you can mess it up. I mean, if I'd have done it for a week, I'd have been fine. If I'd have done it for a month, I'd have been fine. Couple of months, I'd have probably had a couple of niggles, and that would have been reversed in 3 days of fasting or whatever. But the whole summer and getting really lax with it, nah. I took myself out for a whole winter and pretty much half the spring, to recover, and it was horrific. But it taught me a hell of a lot.
Yeah. And that's why the title of the book, the best thing that ever happened to me, arthritis, in a way you have a gift, because your body tells you when you're doing something wrong. Whereas a lot of us, our symptoms are probably not loud enough for us to pay attention, but yours are like, listen to me, you need to change what you're eating. And it's kind of a gift in a way. But I have to ask though, Phil, I mean, how do you keep this interesting? Because I can imagine that after a while, the flavor kind of becomes the same. I presume you don't add any herbs or any kind of dried anything. How do you keep it interesting?
Your tastes refine. Really, they refine. It's so different. A lamb day is so different to a beef day. I wake up and I go, it's
Do
a
you do
lamb day.
days?
Yeah, well, kind of. I just sort of think I really
It's a
crave
lamb
some
day.
lamb today, but I don't want another day. It's burger day today, or it's steak day, or I don't even eat many steaks. It's not, they're too expensive. You eat ribeye steak all day long, every day. It's going to be expensive. But, I'll know when I need some oysters. There's something in there. I'll know when I need some small oily fish or some egg yolks, which I don't eat very often, but sometimes I crave it. I'll know whether I want something slow cooked or something fried, in some tallow. Or there's so many different ways of doing these meats, and your tastes do become refined. Now, I've got to say, every now and again, I will go out for an Indian meal. I don't have the bread or the rice or anything. I don't even have the sauces, but I'll have a mixed grill. And it's not even hot, but the spices on there are like a sensory overload now. It's like when people say that they give up sugar and then they have a little bite of chocolate and it just tastes too much. It's too much.
Yeah.
And it's the same with even the other foods, the plant foods, any sort of carbohydrates or spices or anything like that. It's just an overload. Your sense of taste definitely refines, and it doesn't get boring. After a while you get so used to it. That's what we ate. We didn't sit around in those days and sort of go, well, they didn't sit around in the morning and say, what are we going to have for breakfast? I wish they'd hurry up and invent Cocoa Pops. They just said, what meat do we have lying around? Oh, we don't have any, but we're running on fats, so we don't lose that energy. We just notice there's a mild hunger. Hunger means hunt, not eat. So go out and get something. And nothing tastes so good as when you're really hungry, the fatty meat does. If you look at those, the series Naked and Afraid, it's a great education actually.
I haven't seen
Because
that,
they
no.
go in, it's just, two naked people, they get thrown out into the jungle or into the Serengeti or something like that. Right, go fend for yourself. And it's fascinating. They have to go catch their own food, and generally they're not very good at it. And so they go days without eating. And then finally they'll catch something. They're living on the odd scorpion or this or that, or they might find a snake. Or if they try and eat plant foods, they generally get stretchered off with some sort of gastro issue. And the ones that stick to animals are okay. So it's not the Garden of Eden out there trying to find all these beautiful fruits and stuff. But then when you see them, and there was one particular one where a whole tribe of them, they did a multiple one where different pairs of whatever men and women met up and they had a tribe. And somebody got an electric eel, and it was a big thing, right? And it was really fatty for a fish. And they cooked it, and you could just see them. They were just going, oh, it was orgasmic. There was this fat running down their faces, and it was just absolutely one. And you've never seen anyone enjoy food that much. However much they go out, oh, I really want a pizza. I love pizza, or whatever. But this electric eel, unsalted, unseasoned, just boiled up, it was the best thing they'd ever tasted. And so that's the kind of taste. We've become so disconnected from our ancestral tastes. And we've been overloaded by these criminals in the food companies, these addiction specialists that they employ to find out the exact balance of poisonous seed oils and grains and sugars to give that bliss point where you can't stop eating. Pringles, crisps, for example,
Right,
cancer
once
in
you
it.
pop, you can't stop. Yeah.
Exactly. They even use it in the advertising.
Yeah.
So, that's what they're doing. And when you get rid of those tastes, because basically they're addictions. It's like you can be really hungry and you can eat a load of steak, and then you come to a bite where you're full, you've had enough.
Yeah.
But you could still eat a great big bucket full of Haagen-Dazs afterwards, right? Because it's bypassed that satiety feeling, the leptin signaling. You don't know when you're full anymore when you're eating those hyperpalatable foods. So that's what's going on. And when you can get rid of those addictions, how I got rid of it was telling myself that it's the dodgy bacteria in my stomach that are still there, that are craving this to be fed. It's not me.
Yeah.
It's not what my cells are craving.
Yeah.
It's my addiction and my deranged gut bacteria. And that used to help me not buy chocolate when I was going and filling up the car with diesel or whatever and going and paying. They had those rows of chocolate.
They do, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, speaking of appetite, what do you find your appetite is like on the carnivore diet? Do you feel like how many meals a day do you have? Do you even feel like eating in the morning? Like, what is your day like, and what can someone expect to feel? Because a lot of people, when they transition over to eating meat, exclusively, I mean, my husband has dabbled in carnivore, and he says, one of the main things he notices is he just doesn't feel like eating that much. And do you feel the same? And is that normal?
Yeah. Well, it's so nutritious. And fat, as they say, is like a log on the fire rather than carbs, which is like a newspaper that burns and it's gone. A log just kind of simmers away there all day long, smolders away rather. And you get really long energy. I get to go play gigs with people half my age, and they're screaming for a pizza afterwards. And I'm 62. I could play the gig again. The energy doesn't really tail off. But what are we now? 5 o'clock in the evening. I haven't eaten today, and I've only thought about it. I've only thought about it now. You've said so.
Yeah.
And only because I'm not doing a deliberate fast. I'll see if I feel like eating after this. I probably will, but past 6 o'clock, it gets a bit too late for me. I don't really like to eat. So then if I go to bed hungry, that's great. I'll eat the next morning. But generally, it's 1 or 2 meals a day. Usually one about 10 in the morning, one about 4 in the afternoon. Or if I forget to eat, I had so many things I had to do today and then jumped on the podcast. And so I haven't had a chance to eat, but it hasn't bothered me. I'm not thinking about it.
I mean, but this raises a really interesting question about women who are in the kind of childbirthing years of their life. And I think one of the biggest criticisms about fasting, for example, for women is that they're going to mess up their hormones and that they're going to, reduce their chances of having kids. And, if their body fat goes too low, then again, that could reduce their fertility. There's a lot of reasons to fast, and there's a lot of women championing fasting for women, and I'm actually one of them. But I'm just interested in your perspective. So, you know, a woman who is on the carnivore diet, she's lost her appetite because, you know, she's eating so much nutritious food. So she's fasting more than she would have, losing weight, I I presume. What would you say to someone like that who's a bit concerned?
I would say that if there's a few aspects to that really, that if you're eating when you're hungry and you're just not getting hungry, but if you're eating when you're hungry, I don't even call that fasting. You
Mm,
know, people go, oh, I fast for 16 hours a day. That's not a fast. That's in between meals. I mean, I haven't eaten for over 24 hours now, and I don't consider myself in a fast at all. You know, fasting to me is something deliberate that
mm.
starts a night, a day, and a night. And then maybe you fasted for a day, and then, you know, you can do multiple days. But it's better to do a dry fast, you know, no water either, because then you preserve the muscle mass. And I lost a lot of muscle mass doing a ton of fasting, sort of 5, 6 days here and there, 11 days once. And it was always water fasting because I
Why is
became so,
that? Why does water affect your muscle mass?
because the body is no longer looking for hydration. That's its first priority. So it looks for nutrition. And so it'll start, and you'll get hungry because you're probably a carb monster, the people who tend to do water fasting. And so the body then panics and it starts to break down its own tissues to nourish itself. But if you dry fast, the body's main priority is to find water. And so it goes into all the cells looking for water, and it will blow up the cells that are unnecessary. So it will go for tumors, it will go for cysts, it'll go for all kinds of things. And it brings in really high grade autophagy and apoptosis very quickly without breaking the muscle mass down. And you know, it's much more effective. Like one day of dry fasting is pretty much as effective as 3 days of water fasting, but preserving the muscle. And all sorts of other things it does as well. It depletes deuterium because it's blowing up the old cellular water. Fantastic thing to do. And, you know, there seems to be a magical point of about 11 days, you know, the 11-day dry fast. Oh, don't you die after 3 days? No, you hardly even get thirsty after 3 days. You know,
Seriously?
maybe if you're walking around in the desert or whatever, but you do a 3, 4, 5 day dry fast, you'll still be peeing on the third, fourth, fifth days, you know. The body doesn't even really bother about that. And ancestrally, we would have had times where that happened. Is it necessary? No. I think the problem with women fasting, when they talk about problems, hormonal issues, are probably more to do with the foods that they're eating in between their fasts than the fasting.
Right.
Because ancestrally, we'd have fasted. We didn't get a kill every day. And
Yeah.
we had healthy babies. The tribes who live like that, you know, you talk to Mary Ruddock, they have easy births. This high infant mortality is a bit of a myth out there. They have easy births. They don't have a problem with it. It's not a urgent medical condition that you have to go into hospital for and all that nonsense. And so, you know, the hormonal balance, sometimes the hormones can do weird things on blood results when women go keto or carnivore. And so there's this myth that going keto blows up the thyroid and that kind of thing. But that would have been again an issue with the Maasai or with the Inuit or with the Sami herders or whatever. It doesn't blow up your hormones. Sometimes they go like when I see people with Hashimoto's, for example, which is easier to fix than Graves' disease, which is the hyperthyroidism
Yeah.
as opposed to the hypo, and it's a nasty one, Graves' disease.
Yeah.
It takes some other approaches as well, but if you have Hashimoto's, quite often if you go keto, then the thyroid hormones can do weird things. And your doc will go, oh, look what's happening here. You've got to get off that. And people who come to me in a panic say, you told me that, but my doctor's told me this, and my thyroid hormones are all over the place. And how do you feel? Oh, I feel way better. I feel great. Well, there you go. The body's doing what it's
Mhm.
supposed to do. And then if you go down the line after that, the rearranging, then it generally all comes back into balance. But then again, blood results are a snapshot of people who eat pizza and pasta. They're an average of people who eat like that.
Mm.
And so does it really apply to people on a carnivore or keto diet? Probably not. But there's Dr. Jamie Seaman, Seeman, and she's got some great interviews. She's a carnivore doc, looks amazing, and she's got great interviews out there on sort of more of the complicated side of female hormones and what happens. and well worth listening to some podcasts of hers. I'll get her on sometime to talk about female hormone health, because she's brilliant at that. But no, I don't see any issue with eating. Like Ken Berry says, you know, is the carnivore diet any good for fill in the blank, thyroid issues, whatever? Now, take out carnivore diet and put species appropriate, proper human diet. Is that good for thyroid? It sounds silly then. It's just what people have got to understand is that was our ancestral diet. We ate a few other things, but not enough to harm us. But in this day and age, we've got to be more strict. There's everything thrown at us. There's, you know, we haven't even got into the blue light and all the artificial light and stuff that totally deranges hormones. You know, for example, here's an interesting story. I had a woman come to me a while ago, carnivore 4 years, suddenly started putting weight on, no change in diet. What the hell's going on? Okay, so what have you been doing? Well, she was massaging people for a living, and she didn't want the shedding. Okay, we won't go too much into that and get your podcast blown up, but she didn't want the shedding.
I don't know what that is.
Well, from the things that we've been given in our arms over the past 4 years or whatever.
Right,
And
right.
there's some
Okay,
people sort of
right.
shed it, and she was thinking that she was picking up from that. So she gave that up, and she went and decided to be a Forex trader, and she was in front of a computer all day long. Blue light, no iris tech on the computer, no blue blockers, and she started putting weight on. And she said, I never thought about that. It was exactly when that happened.
Wow.
And it wasn't enough. You know, this business of calories in, calories out and exercise and whatever, it's all nonsense. It doesn't, the body doesn't work like that. You know, I lost 90 pounds eating really fatty meat and, you know, 4,000 or so calories a day, really trying to heal and nourish myself when I was eating sort of 2,500 of vegetable matter before and doing loads of exercise. So zero exercise, 50 years old, I saw my first set of abs doing nothing. And so, you know, that it's all about hormones, the weight. And when you've got that horrible blue light coming in, going straight into your thyroid as well, it doesn't just come in through your eyes, it goes in through the skin. And, you know, if somebody's got Hashimoto's, I say, look, get iris on the computer, get blue blockers on, wrap your neck up. Don't let that blue light in, particularly in the evenings and the mornings. Don't let the light in. And when you do that, then the weight started coming off her again, you know, when she started doing that and no other changes. So it was the blue light messing around the hormones, and people go, oh, it can't be that, it's nonsense. I mean, I don't know if you've heard of Dr. Jack Kruse.
I have, yeah. And I know you mentioned him a lot in your book as well. Yeah, he turned things around for you, right? When your research,
well,
when you were
did
wanting
all
to
of this
heal.
stuff. He talked a bit more about diet back then, but the light and the cold thermogenesis and all the things that helped me. And he's become a good friend. He's incredible, incredible guy. So intelligent, so knowledgeable. And, you know, he keeps telling me, stop being a food guru, be a light guru. It's got nothing to do with food. I think he plays down the food side a bit because, you know, when you've got screaming psoriatic arthritis, changing your bulbs for red ones isn't going to do much at that stage, right? But, you know, getting out in the sun and getting proper light in your eyes and helping yourself to sleep and at night properly, and the cortisol melatonin cycle, absolutely essential alongside all the good diet. But, you know, fasting or eating fatty meat and nothing else can really bring the inflammation down very quickly. But people say, you know, oh, it can't be that important. But if you think of battery chickens, you know, they keep strip lights on all day. It just keeps them laying around the clock, and they die really early and they're trashed. And the whole of nature runs on light cycles.
Yeah.
That's what happens. And the amount of breast cancer, particularly among women who are night workers, you know, under artificial light all night, it just disrupts the hormones horrendously. I mean, when I was talking about my mum earlier on, yes, we got her on a carnivore diet, but I also did the iodine protocol for her. But I also dragged her out into the sun for the first times in 40 odd years, you know, and got her sunbathing a bit. I got her wearing blue blockers if she's going to watch the TV in the evening. I changed the bulbs for like fire glow ones in her flat. And yeah, whatever added up to it, it reversed it. And the oncologist was astonished. And, you know, it's the first cancer reversal he'd seen, he said. natural cancer reversal. And he thought I was nuts all the time I was taking her to him. And then
Probably
he
feels
said,
differently now, right? After the
oh,
reversal.
I don't know. I mean, who knows if they just put it out in their minds? I don't know. But he was a cool guy. He just still thought I was nuts.
Mm.
But, and I've told this story many times, but he said, yeah, that I said, is that the first natural cancer reversal you've seen? You're an oncologist, aren't you? And he said, yeah. And I said, well, I'm a drummer and I've seen quite a few.
Wow.
It's not rocket science, you know, it
Yeah.
isn't. You just, if the body's going to heal, they say, is a lovely expression, isn't there, that any disease is curable, just not every patient.
Mm.
And it entirely depends what you do. I mean, even getting into the emotional side of things, you know, why does somebody get arthritis in one knee and not the other, or their elbow and not their foot? The rheumatologists have no idea. Oh, it's just genetics, it's just luck, it's just, no, it's not. You know, if you actually look at somebody's symptoms and then relate them back to like one of Louise Hay's books, or In a Seagull's Secret Language of Your Body, and look up the emotional tie with that particular part of the body. Again, that's another blessing of arthritis. It can go anywhere. It shows up all sorts of lunacies and stresses and paranoias and traumas you've had. And you know, you can trace it back. And it's so painful that people tend to be stricter. You get somebody with something like MS, and it's more difficult to motivate them because they don't see day to day, they won't see the improvement so quickly as you would with something like arthritis, where the pain goes at least. So it takes longer to build up those nerve sort of the dural sheaths around the nerves, and you know, stop that demyelinization, isn't it, or demyelination, whatever it is.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
won't try and help there. I just
yeah,
I will get tongue-tied as well.
you know, just when it's like when you've got two power cables next to each other and the insulation isn't very good, so it shorts out. And this is basically what's happening in those sort of neurological disorders. And so you've got to build up those myelin sheaths again, and it's a very slow process. And so it's difficult to get people to have the confidence in this. I have absolute confidence now. You know, when it all went wrong in 2022, I never for 1 second thought I'm going to the doctor, or you know, oh, what, I'm doing something wrong. I know what I'd done and I knew how to fix it, and I got a big slap.
Right.
And you just end up with that kind of confidence, and then the docs are there for when you crash your motorcycle and break a bone, you know? And that's it. It's great.
Can I just ask you then, Phil? So, do you ever think what life would be like for you if you didn't discover this? So, let's say you're still, you know, caught up in transcendental meditation and you're still doing Ayurvedic pills and you're still on medication. And do you ever wonder what life would be like, or do you prefer to not go there?
Oh yeah, happy to go there.
Mm,
It's I think I'd either be dead or I'd be
mm,
severely crippled, you know. I mean,
mm,
even with what I've done and what I've known, with the wrong turns I've taken, I've still got a dodgy knee and a dodgy wrist. But I got away pretty lightly compared thinking of how severe it was. And when I see people with that kind of severity, I mean, I went back to my rheumatologist. I don't know, it's probably sometime around the time I wrote the book. And he saw me as, you know, the first time I walked in there, I was this really fat dude with dreadlocks down to his knees. And you know, I looked very different when I went in there the next time. And I went there to show, because the appointment came up. I thought, oh, great, he'll be happy to see what I've done. He was furious. He was screaming and shouting at me, you need to take methotrexate or it's going to get in your heart and
yeah, you
lungs.
wrote about that. That was
Yeah, yeah.
alarming to read.
Amazing. Oh, yeah, he was a very angry man. And, you know, the people in his waiting room were fat, and they were all on crutches, and they were, and, you know, how good is your methotrexate doing them?
Mm,
And then I see people who, I met some lady, you know, about 5 years after that, after I wrote the book, I was doing a talk somewhere, and she came in and she'd started with that rheumatologist at about the same time as I'd just not gone back to him again. I said, well, how are you doing? And she said, well, how's your arthritis? She said, well, it hasn't changed. But I've now got depression and I'm on sort of psych meds, and I'm diabetic now, and my liver's trashed because they're having to watch that because of the methotrexate. 17 meds she was on, and she was overweight and in a really bad way.
mm.
And she was looking at me saying, how on earth is that really possible for me? What have you done? You know, you've done this. And Yes, it is. It is. But you've just got to get confidence, you know, you've got to get confidence and get away from this really evil disease management system.
Mhm.
You know, I was kind of easy on them 5 years ago, or even when I wrote the book, I thought, well, okay, they're doing their best, they're whatever. But no, not the docs. Some of them they go into it for good reasons, you know, most of them. But then when you see them wake up and do the other research, they all end up like Anthony Chaffee, Ken Berry, you know, David Unwin, who lives near to me here, and all these people who have woken up to the lunacy of the dietary advice and the unnecessary meds that are prescribed. And they all wake up to that, and they never go back to it.
Mhm.
But now I think it's a seriously evil system. And I think everything they've done to people has been for financial gain, and perhaps even worse than that, just depopulation and power and control. And when you look at, you know, I think the last 5 years, which we again won't get into because it'll blow up your channel, but I think it's taught people, a lot of people, it's opened their eyes to at least several more layers of the evil than where they saw it in the first place, you know? People
Mhm.
who absolutely had faith in doctors are saying, I'm a bit suspicious now. And those of us who had no faith in doctors are saying it's actually evil. You know, what happened around the turn of the last century, and when the medical systems were taken over by the Rockefellers and whatever and Carnegies, and it's very evil stuff when you look at what happened with the Flexner report, and just really making all of the decent healers illegal. Basically, they just ran them out the country, and you know, some of them were murdered, and they were just called quacks, and these were the real healers. They understood all this ancestral wisdom,
Mhm.
and they had to go with this. They wanted to go with this chemical-based, you know, disease management system, and it's pretty evil. It really is, and they're not curing anybody. They have no results in chronic disease, none.
Mhm.
So, what? But the trouble is, there are a load of other lunatics out there. You know, there's people out there going, you know, well, if you do this or that and take this herb or that one, everything will be cured, and it's not like that.
Mhm.
You have to be very patient, and you have to do pretty much everything. And it takes. I can tell somebody what to do in 5 minutes, but it's the confidence, isn't it? And that's why I think it's great when people really do educate themselves.
Mhm.
You know, I like to point them at things where people educate themselves. You know, if I do a consult, I'll be thinking of, oh, that podcast would be really good for that person, or that link, or this or that. I'll send them a great big email of all these links and ideas for them, instead of giving them just a prescription and not telling them
Yeah.
why.
Mhm.
You know, to give them the confidence, that's the important thing. And then tribes and groups. That's why I love what I do with through my Substack now, which we did do through the Big Fat Challenge of you know, I do 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. group calls, and people who I've consulted with or people I haven't and whatever, they'll come along and we'll all chat. And what is so useful is seeing often somebody 2 weeks or 2 months down the line from them, instead of somebody who's 9 years down the line or whatever. Oh, that guy's a lunatic, I can never do that, you know. But if you see somebody who went, wow, actually this rash has gone, my sinus issues have cleared up, I've dropped 15 kilos, I'm sort of 6 months down the line, I feel amazing. That's much more inspiring quite often to somebody who's just starting,
Yeah.
you know. And they can say, oh yes, I did have that problem, oh I remember that one, yeah, it's all right, it goes in about 3 weeks. I've forgotten how long it took probably for the when somebody, I haven't read that book that I wrote for years and years. I don't think I ever did. I wrote it and that was that.
That
But
was
but somebody sent me a scan of a couple of pages where I think I wrote a load of symptoms that I'd sent to my rheumatologist. And I thought, like, whoa. And they were saying, oh, how long did it take for this? I don't remember half of them. Oh, yes, I had that. Oh, God, I've forgotten about that one. And they all clear up. Whereas when you've got autoimmunity, it can hit everywhere, and
Mhm.
you'll get weird things going on. It's all part of the same process. But if you get paranoid, you'll end up going to every single department in the hospital, and that drives you mad.
Yeah.
Not only do you spend the whole time going to on hospital appointments, but you get all these medications,
Mm.
and the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So you get all these medications that interfere with each other from different departments, and this polypharmacy that happens. And then it's disaster. Then it's always downhill. So Yeah.
What advice would you give to someone then? Because I can imagine anyone who's listening to this is like, right, like, because I'm very inspired right now. Like, you're incredibly inspiring, and I'm just thinking, you know, I'm going to give this a go as well. So, anyone who feels the same as me and they want to give it a try, what advice would you give to them starting out? Do they need to ease themselves in, or do you just say cold turkey, like go straight to carnivore, like now?
I think it depends if you're an abstainer or a moderator.
What does that mean?
Well,
Abstain or mod?
some people are moderators who can, it's like my missus. If there's a bar of chocolate, she can have one square and then leave it in the fridge.
Right.
I
Oh,
don't
okay.
understand that.
I
I
don't
don't
understand.
I don't understand that. You know, if
Never
you buy a bar
understood
of
those
chocolate,
people. Yeah.
if you have one square, the whole lot goes, right?
Right.
So for people like me, cold
Mm.
turkey is great.
Cold
If
turkey.
you
Right.
if you want to ease off, some people ease off, then fine. You know, I
Mm.
did, but not because I didn't want. If I'd have known in 2010 that fully carnivore would have fixed me with no joint damage and I'd be absolutely fine now, I would have gone fully carnivore in a second.
Hmm.
But I didn't know. And so I thought, oh, well, maybe I need some veg with this. Maybe I need this smoothie. Maybe I need, I didn't need any of it. Maybe I need this supplement. No, on a carnivore diet, you don't need any supplements. Don't take anything. Half of them have fillers in that keep the gut leaky. A load of them have high deuterium in. The multivitamins, for example, are not very bioavailable. Plus, they put the wrong vitamins together so they work against each other. Most 99.9% of these things are just peed or pooed out. And the people who take them and need extra nourishment, they can't even get nourishment from them anyway, because they've got a leaky gut and these things just go through. Waste of money.
Yeah.
Forget the supplements. So I made a load of mistakes. I spent tens of thousands, sitting there. Luckily, I had a load of money at the time. I have none now because of what I do. Because you help people to heal, you don't get much. You prescribe them poisons, you get a nice big car and a nice house to live in, and
Mm.
it annoys me sometimes. Sometimes it does annoy me because I get so many healing things. I mean, if you look on my consult page on my website, just and that was only from 2016. Only recently I've collected a few more and I've put them on there. But I've had years in between where I'm just useless and lazy, and I should have had video testimonials and everything. They're so important. I just see people here and I'm like, great, that's cool. And then like 6 months later, oh, who was that? I can't remember. Can't remember where it was. But I get all of these, and they haven't. It's just rheumatologists haven't had one. They haven't
Hmm.
had a single one of these things. Some people, they get rid of the inflammation short term, and they're always checking their liver and they blow up, and then they have to get them on a different med, and then that causes more problems, and they all go downhill.
Mm.
You find me a rheumatologist who said, I've put someone in remission and they have no symptoms anymore and they're not on any meds. There isn't one. There isn't one out there. That drives me mad.
Yeah.
So I'm getting wound up now. I'm having rants
Let's
about rheumatologists. But I
we should
think
change the topic slightly if you're starting to
no,
get
no, it's
upset.
cool. But I think my advice to them is, I mean, seriously, if you have something autoimmune, please get a consult with me or somebody else, Michaela, if she does them, but somebody who's been through them and really understands carnivore. I think that's the magic. There's some great docs out there who have more scientific knowledge than me. But when you've actually been through it and know the exact tweaks and, oh, I feel this, what's going on there? I know exactly what's
Mm.
happening there. And to speak to somebody like me, don't waste the time. If
Mm.
you're newly diagnosed now, get out of it straight away. Don't think, oh, I'll just try the meds. I'll just do this. I'll do that. Don't do it. Get out of it. Don't have a really cronky knee and wrist like me.
Mm.
Get out of it before any damage is done. And you can do easily. So, just come and get the advice from somebody who's really been through it and understands the principles of it. And I've been stupid enough in my life to have made so many mistakes that I know every single one you're going to make. Whoever you are out there with joint pain, I know them all. And
Right.
and so do that, get the confidence, and then join some kind of group. Get on all the carnivore groups, see the people healing, get confidence, see the other journeys that people are having, because it's not uncommon. It's
Mm.
not one lunatic like me saying this. And
It's
please,
everywhere.
if
If you look, you'll
yeah,
find it.
yeah, and people, it's not just useless anecdotes, as people say. The anecdotes for carnivore now far outweigh the amount of people that were in the studies that say that, meat is bad or causes cancer, all that nonsense, far more. And so, you know, it's funny, isn't it, that all the things that are supposed to be caused by fatty meat reverse when all you eat is fatty meat.
Right.
You know, that lovely expression, I don't blame the burger for the sins of the bun.
Mm-hmm.
If you eat McDonald's all day, you're going to get sick, but it isn't that burger in the middle of the bun. It's all the
Yeah.
rest of the crap that you have it with. So that's what's going on. And yeah, just have confidence. You don't need fiber. You don't need vitamin C. You're not going to get scurvy. If you don't, you know, that's another one people say always. Oh, what about vitamin C? You're going to get scurvy. 9 years, I'm still waiting. You know, if you do a diet that gives you scurvy, it's going to happen within 2 or 3 months, you know. But there is enough vitamin C in meat, especially in things like liver. And meat, vitamin C competes for the same pathway as carbohydrates. So nature knows best. If you don't eat plants, you don't eat carbs, you don't need that extra vitamin C. There's easily enough in meat. The old ship's captains knew that it was a cure for scurvy. It didn't just prevent it, it was a cure for it. You didn't need limes and lemons. But if you eat berries, that's high carb. You're going to need extra vitamin C. It's nature taking care of you, you know. But if you don't eat the berries, you don't need the extra vitamin C. It's nature is perfect. Just relate it back to nature. That's what I say. If somebody's saying, oh well, should I take this supplement, or should I juice this or that? How much of that did we do in our ancestry? You know, did the tribes sort of have a blender there and they plugged it in and blended something up? No, they didn't. You don't need that stuff. You don't need it.
Yeah. Well, do you know what? That was just such an inspiring way to finish, I think, because it gives people hope and it lets people know that their health is under their control and there is something that they can do, or at least try. So, how can people find you and what you do and kind of get involved with you?
Well, you know, philescott.com points at my website, but that's a bit mashed up at the moment. I think the best thing to do at the moment is go to my Substack, philescott.substack.com, and I do all the posts there, and that will be that's my mailing list as well. I've only just started it off, but that's where you can get on the calls for support and whatever. But I'll send you the links if you put stuff underneath. But the best thing to do is the link tree. My link tree, because that's always updated, and I'll send that to you afterwards. But it's we do a bunch of things. We have live events as well. We've got one coming up this year in August in England, ancestral health event where I'll be playing with the Daz band as well. We got music and we've got a great speaker, Sarah Pugh, who is just wonderful. She's, you know, England's answer to Jack Kruse, the quantum stuff that she knows. She's amazing.
What's her
She's
name?
Sarah Pugh, SARAPUGH, Dr. Sarah Pugh.
Right,
Have a look
yeah.
at some of her stuff and get her on. She'll blow you away.
Yeah. I'm getting
She's
all these
amazing.
names from you. I'm literally scribbling away. I've got about 6 names written here.
Yeah. Well, some of the amazing people have been on my Red Pill Buddhas podcast. Go
Yeah.
poach them. I'll hook
Yeah.
you up, get them on, because Sarah Pugh is incredible on all the quantum stuff and the light. She's speaking there. And we got Richard Smith as well, who, I mean, he's amazing. His story, he was 100 pounds overweight, diabetic, couldn't get up the stairs, covered in acne, all sorts of issues. And then he went carnivore and he was winning European bodybuilding competitions. And now
Wow.
he's doing triathlons and stuff. I mean, he looks incredible. And he's become, in the last 11 years, probably one of the most knowledgeable people I know on biochemistry, all the scientific stuff that goes over my head. You know, we do a GB Carnivores thing on my YouTube channel, and the other guys' YouTube channels. It's streamed out to all of them every Tuesday evening, and he's on there quite often. And Stephen Thomas and Jonathan Griffiths and some great people, and Ben comes on as well, Ben Hunt, who I do the Big Fat Challenge with, and the Red Pill Revolution books. But all of the ways to find me will be on that link tree. But have a look at some of the live events as well, because this is ancestral, not just doing things over Zoom. Get together and talk to people and be able to talk to these speakers and all these people. Come to the live events. The one in August is in England. That's not expensive at all, camping and all kinds of stuff, and you know, going on all the events there, the activities there. Our Spanish one is almost sold out, probably because Anthony Chaffee's going there, and that's a nice, exclusive, expensive one. But I think we've only got 2 rooms left, but that's in October in Spain. But Anyway, on my link tree, there'll be all the
Right.
events that we do and stuff. But I love the live ones. I just love the live ones, you know.
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
Yeah.
And to have people actually come up to you and say, wow, you've helped. Your group has helped me, or Facebook group, or do you remember you had a consult like 3 years ago or something? Look what I'm like now. And it's so lovely. And I get
Wow.
real in my throat. And it's not me.
Yeah.
You know, it's not me. It's
They
just
just needed to know.
wisdom.
Yeah. They just need
They
to know,
do it
like
themselves.
their wisdom, like their body knows what to do. It just needs
Yeah,
to be
yeah,
given the right stuff to do it. Yeah.
exactly. Just give them the power back to do it, because they're the ones that heal themselves. It's not me. I can just point them, but it's so rewarding. It's so lovely to see these people out of the grips of the pharma companies. And yeah, it's beautiful.
Lovely. Well, Phil, that was just an incredible conversation. Like I've learned so much and I'm really inspired. Like, and I have to say, anybody who's not watching, Phil, you look good. Did you say you're 62? You
Yeah, I
look,
was
but I
62.
wouldn't have said you're 62. Like I
Well,
would have said 50s. Like, but so you look good. And like that kind of just says everything, doesn't it? So,
well, always take somebody's past into, because people go, vegans stand up on my YouTube channel and go, well, you don't look very good. You're this, you're that, you're bald, you're whatever. Yeah, but what I don't say, what I haven't said, to that vegan, is that I didn't have a haircut between 1979 and 2011. I had dreadlocks down to my knees by the end of it, and it was my last vegan experiment when my hair started to fall out in 2011. What the hell, But we have our scars from what we've done before. But when you see somebody like, if you look up Maggie White, for the rancher, and she's come to prominence recently from an interview she did with Anthony Chaffee on his channel. She's 82, 83, maybe even 84 now. There are pictures of her. Every time somebody puts a picture of her up, the people go, I don't believe she's 82. She's been carnivore 65 years. And if you look at what somebody actually looks like who's done it that long, and not somebody who's wrecked themselves like I have, I would probably look a hell of a lot better if I hadn't done to myself what I did in the first 48 years of my life. So yes, it's restored certain things, and things don't seem to be going downhill from now on, and so many benefits. But if you see somebody who's been on that for a long time, it's amazing. You see Maggie. People look up Maggie White, rancher,
Maggie White.
65 years, and people say, no, she's not. She's lying. No, but I know Anthony, and he's been out there. He's seen her driving license. He's seen her birth certificate.
I have to look up Maggie White. I have to do this.
Maggie White's
right now.
amazing. Check out pics of her. She looks incredible, and she's lovely. Her interview is amazing. I mean, the life she's had, she's been close to the earth. She's been a farmer. She's ranched out there for a long time. She's had something like 11 kids or something. I can't remember. It's like on her own in a log cabin, didn't go into hospital. Now, I might be exaggerating on that one, but have a listen to the interview. I can't remember exactly what she said, but I know she's had a lot of kids and she's done it on her own.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful, great, fascinating story of what's possible when we eat our ancestral diet and we live on the land.
Lovely. Well, thank you so much. This is such a pleasure. And I feel like, if I get to do another episode with you on another topic, like that would be so good. But for now, thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. It was great to chat to you, and you brought out some good things. It was a good rant and a good chat. Loved it. Thank you.